Cool. Welcome all to another GoTool session. As a reminder, these happen every couple of months now, just because the agendas and number of members are a bit light lately, which is fine. So we have started recording the session. The first item under Command Go is mine, and it's about adding a check flag to GoFund. And there's some history here and some bike shedding, but the reason I'm coming back to this is because I saw that we had another issue, which is 2705 which was originally Go More Tidy check, but that ended up being rerouted to Go More Tidy diff, which fails if the diff is not empty. Now back to GoFund without a space, so the GoFund tool, standalone tool. The problem is that GoFund already has a diff flag called D, and it does not fail if the diff is not empty. So it leaves us in a bit of a limbo state, like if we want to do something consistent, what is it? So my thinking is we stick to check, even though it's not what Tidy did. But at the same time, I'm fine with any choice as long as we make a choice.
I was going to say, we just in January discussed this and it got 5 thumbs up, but then I realized that was January 2023. So we should make a decision on this issue.
Yep.
Does it need to go to the proposal committee, do we think?
I mean, a year ago, I would have said no, because it seemed pretty clear. Now that Tidy has gone a different route, maybe. To be honest, like, for example, if somebody like Russ or somebody else comes and says, let's just do X, I'm going to be fine with it at this point. Whatever choice.
Let's run it informally by Russ to see what he thinks, but proceed that it's not required for a proposal.
Yeah, I would say the only point of making it a proposal is to get somebody's attention. So I'm happy with any method. But I'm happy to implement whatever choice is made.
Okay, well, I can bring it up in the meeting tomorrow. Was it today?
Today.
Today, yeah. I'll bring it up later if you want.
Informally be discussed in the proposal meeting.
Sounds good, thank you. There is nothing under Command Go in the agenda. Any last minute?
I don't have anything. Yeah, I guess yeah, I don't have anything immediately.
Sounds good. We still have a section for Go Please here. I'm not sure if there's anything in the agenda here.
There's not anything in the agenda. I can give a brief status update, I suppose, for lack of an agenda item. So we are in the process of cutting Go Please 16, which is doesn't have a tremendous number of new features, but it does have several bug fixes, and it has most notably support for the 123 features, range over func, and Go types alias equals 1. And so we really want to, we're cutting it a release now because we wanted to at least have a pre-release. So we cut a pre-release this morning. We want to at least have a pre-release before the Go RC, at which point we can say, hey, if you're using Go Please with the Go RC, please install the pre-release. But we actually would like to cut a final release. I think we have at least a week before the RC. So if possible, if we don't encounter any large blockers, we will do that next week. I'll probably advertise in Slack later, asking people to test the pre-release, although this is a much less risky release than some of the releases we've had in the past. So I don't anticipate major issues, although Paul just pointed out that some of the code action changes were breaking GoVim. So we've been discussing at length the semantics of code actions, and it's a little unclear and editor dependent. So that might be something that we need to squash, but even so, it's low risk. That's basically what we're working on now. We still have a lot of stuff that we want to do this year related to refactoring. Additionally, Go imports has been particularly recently a thorn in our side. It seems like every release we run into another Go imports issue, and so we are very aware of. I think I said this in the last meeting, and the one prior to that. So we're very aware of the Go imports issues and are sort of planning to do a rewrite, or at least a partial rewrite, later in the year. I definitely said that in the last meeting, so that's too bad. Other than that, time passes.
Yeah, please give the pre-release a thorough tire kicking.
I continue to run master, no issues. The only thing I run into sometimes is that I try to save a file and quit at the same time, and it just takes a few seconds, and I lose patience, and I just kill Go Please.
Let's go imports.
We fixed that last night. Hannah found the root cause of that last night. It was cancellation in your Go imports.
No. So that is the failure of cancellation, which I fixed last week. And then as soon as I propagated a canceled context to a bunch of 8-year-old code, not surprisingly, it uncovered a bug, which we fixed yesterday. So I actually think that should be fixed at master if you install now. Let us know if it's not, because I'd be curious.
I haven't run into it the last few days. It doesn't happen often, but it wasn't in the back of my mind. Some of these days, someday I should file a bug instead of just killing it and moving on. But somebody beat me to it, so that's great.
There are several of those things. Those tiny things that aren't sort of worth the time to file a bug at that very moment.
Out of curiosity, if Go Please takes a long time or gets quote unquote hung doing something like saving a file and quitting, does telemetry help at all here?
Sure, like we have latency telemetry. It's not collected yet, but we have latency telemetry to report the latency of individual actions. However, the major problem around this is the fact that Go Please handles requests serially. So the perceived latency of a request might not be the server-side measured latency of a request. It might be dependent upon the queue. And so one of the things I'm actually experimenting with now is to try to actually, after 5 years, break this serial nature of request handling. Go Please is concurrency safe because it runs diagnostics asynchronously, but for various reasons, it was always simpler to handle requests in sequence. And usually it doesn't matter because everything blocks on type checking anyway, but it makes it impossible for us to, for example, handle completion without type checking. So another thing that we'd like to do.
Makes sense. I had one last question about Go Please, which is, I remember you spoke about a few months ago that you were going to bump the minimum Go version required to install.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. That is actually another notable thing about the 16 releases. 16 will nag you if you are using 119 or 120, because we're trying to get everyone to install Go Please using 121. As soon as the RC is cut, Go Please at master is going to require the RC. So we are going to 123.
That means that if you build with 121 or later, you'll download 123, but it'll be a hard end of the road for 120.
This requirement is only for building. We're continuing to run trybots with legacy Go versions, and because we run outside of the Go Please directory, we run our tests in a temp directory. They'll use the ambient, like the local tool chain. So we'll continue to run integration tests with older Go versions, but we will require the latest version of Go to build Go Please. We won't release the next major version of Go Please until 123 is actually out.
That's very interesting. So you're not only nudging people to 121, but then when they do, you're making them jump to 123 via the Go toolchain downloading if necessary.
Yeah.
In Go Please 16, we're nudging people towards 121. In Go Please 17, which will be released in August or after August, once 123 is out, we will require 123.
That's very interesting. I would like to hear how that goes, if you get any pushback. You're not going to get any from me, definitely, but...
We're really excited because we'll finally have to support exactly one version, well, 1+ tip version of Go, and we've been supporting 4+ tip for a long time, and it's been a real drag.
And that's my follow-up question. In my tools, I only maintain 2+ tip, but even that is already painful enough.
Yeah.
Things like, for example, in one project of mine, I track aliases manually myself, which totally doesn't work, and I want to use the new aliases stuff. But as it rolls out, I have to wait an extra at least 6 months, right? If I could just tell everybody, no, latest version only, then it's a lot faster. But I wonder if that's a policy we want to encourage in tools, not just Go themes.
I think for applications, it's absolutely the desirable way to live. I
Yeah.
think for libraries, you don't get to do that. You have to support a bunch of older versions.
I guess I mean tools, like for example, static analysis, formatters, whatever else.
Yeah, if people are linking against you, you have to support some number of older versions. But if it's just a main program, you're in luck.
I think there's some environments where toolchain upgrades don't work, and we're going to see how much of a friction point that is. But yeah, I mean, we use the latest version of Static Check and GoFumped, and we only support the latest version of Static Check and GoFumped. So why not support only the latest version of the toolchain for building?
I think the only thing that throws a wrench in this is Go analysis, because effectively most tools are libraries.
So the analyzers that live in XTools will continue to support the last two versions of Go. Actually, we discussed this last week, what our actual policy would be for the Go version in the Go directive of our X repos. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think we decided that we would support 3 versions for XTools.
2 plus tip, right?
Yeah, 3 plus tip.
2 plus tip.
2 plus tip.
plus
tip.
2 plus tip, yes.
Yeah, and which is like the standard. Which is I think the policy throughout the X repos.
I'm not sure if it was 2 plus tip or 3 plus tip, because I thought Delve does 3 plus tip and we were going to align with Delve. But so it's still up for discussion, but we didn't have a policy for versions in X repos. And historically they had been sort of held back by Go Please, and we don't want to do that.
Interesting. I guess I'm wondering about third-party tools that are also Go analyses. Like, should we encourage those to only do latest, or to continue with your library 2 plus tip? Don't have to make a decision right now. I'm just thinking out loud.
I think library code has to support older Go versions. But everything in the Go Please module only needs to support the latest version.
Even if the library is only Go analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That does make things slightly more complicated, but at least if you're like shipping binaries or like a tool at the end of the line, that thing can only be the latest Go version. That should be much easier, actually.
Yeah, I think Go types alias finally broke us, and we just needed to do
Well,
this.
I think it's also that the download mechanism has come of age, and we're actually finally able to use it. But that mechanism was, I feel like, at least in part, motivated by seeing how much pain we were going through. Close to the compiler runtime team, just trying to maintain 4 versions. So we're happy to be using it, or will be, we hope.
Yep.
I did a meetup talk, like, I want to say over a year ago, where I told a bunch of people about the downloading of newer tool chains as like a very early thing. And most of them were surprised by it, but the few that were seemingly opposed to it were the same ones that were using rather old versions of Go.
When I first heard of it, it surprised me, because I thought it would lead to all kinds of sort of having my hands tied in sort of several directions by compatibility constraints that would just be intractable. But I'm actually much more optimistic now. I think it's sort of it's a bit like package managers for your tool chains, right? You just fetch the versions, pull them off the internet, and then build.
Yeah.
It's like treating your tool chain as a module dependency, essentially. And like, that makes so much sense, because like, if you care about like reproducibility of builds, like your tool chain is a factor.
Yeah. I mean, I should say another reason why historically we supported older versions is that the only way to implement the language specification at older versions was to build with that version, but that has also evolved. So there's been a lot of work over the last 3 years by many people to make this possible. So let's do it. Dominic, and I'm curious what you are going to do for Static Check, if you're going to do anything for Static Check in this direction. You can feel free to ping me in Slack if you have anything.
Typing right now.
Great.
Cool.
Sorry, so from no agenda, we managed to spend some time. Should we move on?
The next section, I did rewrite the sections a little bit because they used to be sort of out of place given how much time we spent on each thing. But then we jumped the gun and we did talk about Go/libraries and so on. So I don't think there's anything else to cover here.
Yeah, I think we covered all the stuff with aliases last time. The dust should have settled by now.
Okay. Under miscellaneous, I did have one item here, which is about, again, resurrecting very old ideas of mine that I honestly forgot I filed after some time. I did raise an issue about having a CI best practices documentation page somewhere, like the wiki. And for a long time, this got blocked because the wiki was in GitHub and it had to be moved first and so on, and it couldn't be code reviewed. But now that the wiki is on Gerrit, maybe it's a good time to start a draft.
Yeah.
I'm happy to start a draft. It will be very rough, and I'm sure it will be improved, but I just want to check if that sounds like a good idea, or what is the process for creating a new wiki page? I don't know what it is anymore.
I think if you're willing to put in to create most of the momentum, you will get reviewers, and it'll be a useful thing to do.
Okay. Because I remember with the wiki, with the GitHub wiki, you had to create an issue saying, I propose creating a new page. Is that still the case with the new wiki? Or do I just create a CL and that is the review process itself?
What was the process for approving that issue? Is it any more involved in a code review?
The problem is that with GitHub, there wasn't a review process per se. You would just create the page, right? So they added the red tape by making you create the issue, and then the decision is on the issue. But maybe now that it's just a CL, that's not needed.
I think that your public issue that's been there for 4 years with 26 thumbs up is a good enough
27
consultation process.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's
Okay.
not get tie ourselves down with bureaucracy.
Fair enough. Cool. That's it. Any other items that we forgot about, or any last minute things? Go for it.
So probably not super duper interesting, but I might as well just announce this here. So Go SSA now supports range over func. So please put that through its paces. Send us bugs if things aren't working. It should be mostly transparent unless you do funny things with the verse.
Yeah, what you will notice, I think, is that if any tools do sort of data flow analysis around a loop, it will no longer look like a loop. It'll look like a bunch of suspensions and yield calls. That's just unfortunately the way that we decided we had to implement range over func in SSA.
It looks basically identical to what the compiler does on the inside.
Sounds good, and thank you. So if that's the whole agenda, I'm going to give you all over half an hour back. And the next session, like we mentioned at the start, probably not August, which would be the usual 2-month cadence, just because August, most of us will be somewhere away. So I suggest early September to try to plan for 124 a little bit. So how about September the 4th?
That's me.
Yeah, should be pretty good.
Cool. So I'll prepare that later. And that should be it. We can probably stop the recording now.
Great.
Thanks, Daniel.
If you send me the recording later, I'll upload it, etc.
Thanks.
Have a good
Yeah.
summer.
You too. Bye.